Hi guys, welcome back to The Usual Place. You may have seen the recent headline about the woman who was handed a 1-week jail sentence for lying about her home address during primary 1 school admission to get her daughter into a choice school. But she isn't the only parent who has been caught doing this. Other parents have been fined between $4,000 and $5,000. And there was another case in 2007 where a parent was jailed for forging and lying about his residential address in order to get his daughter into a reputable school in Bukit Timah. Now, data from the Ministry of Education showed that between 2020 and 2024, there were on average 9 such cases investigated each year. So why do some parents think they need to game the system to get their child a good education? Is this just kiasu culture taken to the extreme? And what's driving parents to go to such lengths for a space in a good primary school? Now, to help me unpack this, I have 3 guests today. First up is Pooja Pandari, and you're the founder of Every Child SG. So you founded this non-profit in 2023 to raise awareness about the need for education reforms and the well-being of children in Singapore.
That's right, yes.
All right, so we'll get to you in a bit. And next to you on the couch is Esther Fong Tan, and you're a family life education specialist. It sounds very fancy, but what you do is you help families work on their interpersonal relationships by equipping parents with up-to-date resources and training. And you also have 2 kids who are now in secondary school, right?
One is 12, the other is 14.
All right. Okay, we'll talk about... And Pooja also has kids as well, so around the same age, but we'll talk about it in a bit. And lastly, joining us today is Assistant Professor of Sociology, Jacqueline Ho. So you teach at SMU, and your research is focused primarily on the Singaporean education system, which is very relevant for today's conversation.
Yes.
But I'm very fascinated by your PhD because your PhD dissertation looked at how parents choose primary schools in the context of can every school be a good school?
Yes.
So, which is exactly what we're going to get into today. But I want to ask all of you, the latest case, the reason why we're here is we don't know the name of the parent or the school because there was a gag order in the court case. But getting a jail term for doing something like this is very rare. So when you saw the case and the headlines and the reports, what did you make of it? Maybe we can start with you, Pooja.
Sure. Could I use an analogy?
Sure.
Pokemon Go. So I don't play it, never did. But I did notice when it was a craze, people would be running around with their phones in strange places, doing strange things. And in order to understand that strange behavior, you have to understand the game, right? And the game has certain incentives and it has certain rules. And if you don't know that, it just looks like a really weird, crazy person. So I think, unfortunately, primary school admission has turned into something of a game. And so I think we need to unpack what are the rules, what are the incentives, and why that's driving parents to this kind of behavior.
Okay, and we'll definitely get into the whys of it. But Esther, what was your thoughts when you saw this headline, or saw the report?
My first thought was not so much about the parent, but I was wondering how the child must be feeling in school with her friends. Of course, in the news it's not revealed who is it or which school, but I'm very certain the child and his or her friends would know.
Because the girl would have to be moved out to another school nearer to where she actually stays, right?
And likely in a school with a staff strength of 100, somehow some things will leak out. So my first thought was this kid, how was it for him or her in that 1-2 years when she or he was in the school? Did she have to lie? And each time when the teacher asked her about certain things about, which playground do you usually play with your friends? Hey, you don't hang out, man, just maybe next street. Do you meet your friend who stayed in the same block as you before? And I wonder what was going on in her. So now with this ending up having that the mother has to be punished, I'm just wondering for a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, how would the processing be? Should be quite painful.
Yeah, because she took the year to get used to the school system, because it's already primary one's already quite intimidating for a 7-year-old, right? And then you now have to do it all over again in a new school and make new friends, and maybe the other kids will be like, oh, how come you switched schools, right? And then
not just that, I think at home it will be quite distressing too, because the mother is frantic already, trying to solve, I need to go to court, I need to raise money for the lawyer fees. So I was also wondering, is it worth it? So those were my thoughts.
Jackie, thoughts?
Yeah, I felt it bad also for the family after reading the report. And I guess I felt like, this is not a comment on the fairness of the verdict. I'm sure the judge had her reasons for making this decision. But I think for me, the case kind of drew this bright line, this kind of moral distinction between the parents who break the rules and the parents who don't break the rules, as though the parents who don't break the rules are therefore playing fair, right? So I think the verdict kind of suggests that, this mother's actions undermines the fairness of the system, implying that the system is fair. But in fact, there are many things about the P1 registration system that are not quite fair, right? So I think from the parents that I've spoken to, there are many of them who feel like they have not been served by the registration system. They have not been, they have not received a fair outcome, I suppose, maybe because they don't have the chance to go to a school near to them. And that's not the result necessarily of parents who are explicitly breaking the rules, but that's the result of parents who are using the existing rules to their advantage.
So just to be clear, we are talking about the different phases of registrations.
Correct.
Maybe you want to take us through I was looking at it and there are so many phases. There's phase 1, there's phase 2A. So phase 1 is actually when we just can run through it quickly. So phase 1 is just for a child who is a sibling studying in the school, right? And then Jackie, you want to take us through?
You memorized
Sure.
it?
Did you memorize it, right?
I've memorized the changes to the system over the years.
So phase 2A.
So phase 1, siblings. Phase 2A will be for there's various criteria, but so there'll be your alumni, so children of alumni, children of, or rather siblings of former students, right? So children of staff also will be there. Children who are attending the affiliated MOE kindergarten, they will apply through 2A. And then 2B is where you get your parent volunteers, your clan association members, church members,
Grassroots leaders.
Grassroots, thank you. See, we all know the rules.
Cause got to teach this.
Yeah. Then 2C is the everybody
normal
else.
one, lor.
The people who don't otherwise have a connection to the school.
And there's still a 2C supplementary.
2C supplementary is for the
those
people
who
who don't manage to
didn't
get
get
in
any
2C.
Yeah.
That's the backup, so-called backup phase. And then phase 3 will be your international students.
So it is quite intense it starts in the middle of the year, right? Registering for kids in July or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, working with parents, what are some of the, things that you're hearing from them about anxieties of going through this registration system? Like, do you hear of parents who plan 2-3 years in advance? I don't know, maybe Jackie, have you heard what some of the things that they've said about this?
Yeah, as early as when the child is in the mom's womb. That's kind of as early as I've heard, right? Before the child is born. That's the extreme case. But, if you want to use any of these priority criteria, for several of them, you actually do have to start thinking a couple years ahead of time because some schools will require you to volunteer for 2 years, actually, before you register. Minimum is 1 year, yeah. Some schools that are more competitive might go for 2 years. And even if you don't want to start thinking about it, the people around you will ask you about it. So this is something I hear a lot in my interviews.
Do you hear this happening within your friend groups, Pooja and Esther, when you guys were registering your kids for primary 1 and your friends were like, I need to get them into this school? And
Actually made the mistake of thinking too little about it because I was coming back from overseas. And I just went with alumni school because I was like, I don't have time to figure this out, right? It's a game, I don't have time. And that turned out to be the wrong fit for my child. So I think it's difficult for parents both ways, both trying to play the game and not trying to avoid the game. Yeah.
Now, Esther, did you have a similar experience or?
Basically, I do actually have a workshop usually in May that I will guide parents on choosing a primary school. And most of them would come with questions like, Esther, help us, which phase should I enter, blah, 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 all those.
It's like an exam.
Wow, can earn money from it. No, but that's not the point. So for me, that workshop, I always hope that at the end, it is not just about getting your kid into a school you want, but a school that's suitable for your child. So I've heard of people who will start volunteering at grassroots, but you need to start way earlier because to be a grassroots leader, you need to have already served for one term is 2 years. And prior to that, it's 6 months for background check. So that means if you're looking at 6-year-old, June, July to register, you move back almost like 4 years old, 3 years old, you got to start prepping. I think you should clap for them, very hardcore. But I've also heard of people, actually on some more branded elite schools, you will actually be able to download the application to be a parent volunteer. And you need to go through interviews for some of the schools to be selected to be a volunteer. So
What does this say about us?
yeah, but I didn't. I paid money. No. No, so some schools for alumni-ship, you also need to pay money
To join the alumni, right?
to join the alumni, because that will be one phase,
Not
one
anymore,
tier
no.
earlier than the old boy, old girl who can just show report book. So they separate that again.
But as of 2021, they changed that rule.
Yeah, that's
they
awesome.
collapsed those two phases.
Yeah, so tough.
Yeah.
Got pay money.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, what's driving parents to join the alumni, be a grassroots leader, work the system, understand the system, in order to get their kid into a school that they want? Like, to them, this is the school that I want my kid to go to. What's driving parents to do all these things? I mean,
Yeah, I think it's very high rates of anxiety over this issue, almost bordering into desperation, which is when you get these kind of parents who take the illegal route. And the anxiety, I believe, is coming from the fact that our society is becoming more unequal. So wealth inequality has increased a lot. And parents worry. Like, I think all parents want their kids to do as well or better than them, right? And that is suddenly a major piece of worry for most parents. They're afraid that, there's this long stretch of like outcomes possible for your child, all the way from, gig worker earning $1,000 a month to multi-billionaire, right? And as this stretches out longer, like, where can I get that foothold for my child? And then they project it backwards. So they think, because the last 2 generations, largely outcomes have been related to educational attainment. So they assume that's the current way things are working, and they project backwards. So my kid needs to do well in secondary school, needs to do well in PSLE, therefore I need to get them into the right primary school. So I think that anxiety over, it's an economic thing basically, is what is driving this craziness.
but are parents overreacting? Is this a symptom of our society?
Actually, I don't think it's just that. I think if we take a step back, parenting itself is really a mystery. I mean, we're all parents here. There are so many things that you can't predict. Like, I love to plan, but one of the biggest things that I realize I have no ability to plan is my kids. Because their response, what's going to happen next, is something that you don't have full control when you are parenting. So parenting, if I would say, is like a mystery. So when there are things that I can actually feel more concrete about by, let's say, paying for alumni-ship, working hard to become a parent volunteer, so at least when they are 6, I can have something that I can grab tightly and like, okay, I've done well as a parent. I did all I could to make sure my kid don't lose out. So not so much, let's not just look at it as a societal thing, but just simply as a parent trying to do our best for our kids, just that the best here is to be defined again, right? So I would prefer to look at it as individual parents just trying their best. Just that their best is up to everyone's own definition, right?
Yeah. For me, I think this comes back to the game that it is, right? So like primary school placement, the rules are all these phases, which Jackie has memorized. And the incentives are that if you put in a certain amount of effort, you can rise up these phases. And that effort could be your time, grassroots, working for your religious community, etc., school volunteer, or it could be money. You move somewhere closer, you rent somewhere closer. But there's a concrete change in outcome when you put that effort in, right? And I completely agree with you, Esther. Parents feel like, oh my God, what can I tangibly do for my child, given all this uncertainty about, the world, their outcomes, etc. And they latch on to this as something that
And then
I
if
can
not, it
do.
would be like both of us take the easier way route, just go alumni, and then regret. Because both of us, you didn't like the choice in the end, right? I also
Because you put your kid in your husband's alumni, right?
Yes, my husband's alumni.
So tell us about that.
So first year also maybe part of it is also lazy. So I cannot say I did all I could. So because also like she said, maybe reduce a bit of the anxiety of having to go through the phases. So we said, let's just go and join this school lah, of which we are alumni. It's very, very hard to get in. But within a year, within I think half a year, we realized how unrealistic it is.
Which school was this?
Can say one, ma?
Of course.
Wow. cannot. ST. Okay, it's a well acknowledged boys' school with the letter A.
CS. Okay, so basically you put him in ACS
yes,
primary,
but it's
then,
very far. So within half a year, we realized, oh my gosh, we got to wake so early, and then, but at P1 because school still ends early, so you don't feel the impact. But going home was 2 hours on public transport. If not, we have to pay quite a big sum for school bus, and school bus is really expensive, right? So half a year in, I was looking at his lifestyle. I feel that waking up so early is not good for young kids. Then secondly, I was thinking, by P3 there's CCA, by P5 and 6 so many supplementary. What time is he going to reach home? If school ends at 5+, 2 hours, 7:30, and kids have to sleep by 9. My time with him will only be 1 hour at home. And minus homework, minus dinner, we have negative 2 hours. So after that, we decided, let's bring him back to nearer home, which in the end up is like a 10 minutes journey instead of 2 hours. And there are so many good benefits out of it.
I want to know, was he happy about being pulled out of ACS and going to a school nearer to you guys, to where you live?
I'm thankful that the decision was made fast and swift, that he did not even... But I was very glad because the arrangement was the last week of term 4. So actually didn't have so much time of which the children, you are leaving, why are you leaving? Don't have. So last 2 days, grab things and then say, thank you teacher, thank you friends, okay, let's go. Yeah, so we started the new school year. Quite clean, and I think he's younger, still quite adaptable. But turned out to be a really, really good decision because he sleeps so much more. He hangs out with his friends in the neighborhood. A bit like my own childhood, whereby we go to a school near home, we meet at the playground, and then we go to the nearest mall to buy drinks. We can do projects together. That kind of kampong vibe, I see it till today. He still hang out with his primary school friends near home. I thought that is very precious, right? Yeah. For society, right?
I want to ask Jackie because to me, reading, I'm not a parent, so reading this about parents doing this, I kind of reflects like the competitive culture that we're in, right? And it seems to me that parents see getting their children into a good primary school as something that's super important to give children as an edge. Could you explain some of that thinking behind why parents do this?
Yeah, I think to build on the points that Pooja and Esther made earlier, Pooja made this point about economic inequality, which I think is just a very present reality for us in Singapore and really around the world, right? And then Esther, you were getting at this idea of control, right? Like parenting, you said, is a mystery and there's a lot of uncertainty involved. And this is totally what I heard from my parent interviewees too, is that so they will frame it as like this primary school choice is kind of like the last thing that I can do for my children, because when they go to secondary school, that's more of their choice already, right? So this is like my chance if I can control something. They would say this thing, if I can do something, why wouldn't I, right? So the system is putting the choice in their hands. It's making them choose, right? We have this universal choice system. Nobody is allocated to a school. Everyone has to do something to get into the school. What that sets up is a sense that, especially among parents who are surrounded by other parents who are doing something, if they don't do that something, then they will start to question, am I being a good parent, right? Even in some of the language you all used earlier, I think, Esther, you used the word lazy at some point. You said maybe like you were a little bit lazy. And parents
After that, I got think.
Yeah. So parents use this kind of terminology, right? They will describe themselves as, I was hardworking, I put in a lot of work. Or I feel very guilty, I didn't do this. Or I was lazy, right? So it makes it such that doing something for your child is being a good parent, right? So that's one thing I'll say in addition to the economic anxiety thing. The other thing that I think we don't talk about enough really, because we have this stereotype that we always use to describe parents as like kiasu parents, right? And so when the news about this woman breaking the law comes out, it's very easy for us to interpret it through that kind of just kiasu parent frame again, saying like, this woman is crazy, like why is she doing all these things? Like it's not that big a deal to go to a good school. It's not like going to a good school is going to get you good results necessarily or a good job, right? But I think beyond that stuff about getting into a good school equals getting good grades equals getting a good job, there's also concerns about what kinds of peers your children are going to have in school. This is actually, among the parents I talked to, a more prevalent concern than the concern about academics, right? So you will actually hear parents saying, I believe in holistic education. I believe what the government is saying about how children should be developing in these various areas. It's not just about academics. But I'm still very concerned about my children being exposed to bad influence, right? So the fact is that our schools are not the same in terms of their demographic composition, and parents perceive that. And they know that certain schools are higher needs schools, right? So maybe they have like friends who are teachers in MOE schools and tell them like, this particular school, avoid that school because it's a high needs school. And they take that feedback.
High needs?
Oh, a high needs school. So like
Or special needs children.
Yeah, or like children who are from just more challenging family backgrounds, right? Who might face more issues with concentrating in class, or maybe they're not getting good sleep at night, or just a gamut of issues that might come with high concentrations of students from more challenging backgrounds. Yeah.
Did y'all feel so what Jackie's saying is essentially about network, right? So building it from right from primary school. So, and also like building some sort of social capital right from that primary school level. Was that on both of your minds when you were trying to when you were deciding to go back to your older schools? Did it feature at all? I'm just curious. Or you were just like, this is the easier choice, or you kind of, because you all went through the system, you're like, okay, I know how the school will go.
I think life's journey is so long. Who knows who you meet along the way? But honestly, when people hear of us taking my son out, we do have friends who say, "Oh, you're taking away his network in the future."
He's
because
7.
He's 7. And honestly, life is so long. Who will you meet along the way? Right? I mean, you all published and then put certain school name recently. Never mind. Okay. So
that was also 2 episodes ago.
Oh, okay.
So we did talk about it. Yes.
Yeah. So when people question and say, Esther, why are you not doing your best to set the stage well for them? I'm like, really? Who knows what's going to happen in the future? What they're going to learn, who they're going to get to know, their interests. Maybe their interest doesn't require them to be a businessman, hence they need this kind of friends. It's too early to say.
And for us, the whole network thing completely backfired because the school was full of parents who were just stressing out their children and the kids were taking it out on each other. And my daughter was different enough, like mixed race, not like gender questioning, etc., that she became the target for all the bullying. To the point where in primary 6 we had to remove her for 3 months. So for us, it really backfired really badly. To the point where I told my sis, hey, you've seen what I've gone through. Even if the school next to us is like, you need to ballot, I think just don't bother with our alumni school. And she's the last one from our family who's going there.
Oh, okay.
I really think parents need to take more time to just decide based on hearsay. Take time. I have advised parents, if you need to, stand at the school gate during dismissal. You hear the most gossip there. No, you see how children respond to their parents. You hear what the parents are talking about the school. If you really want to know, it's not by hearsay. Go and immerse yourself. Yeah,
I'll just say, I think this information issue maybe is one that could be looked at more closely because, caveat that I did my interviews during the pandemic, so there were not as many open houses for parents to attend, but many of the parents I talked to feel like the kind of information that's available about schools is simply not enough for them to decide. they want to hear from parents in the school. They want to hear from students in the school. How are things really? Yeah.
I believe it's fairly limited opportunities to get to know a specific school. I mean, it depends on the school culture, of course. But like my sister was recently doing this search and she was actually turned away from that school next door. Rather rudely, I think, because there's this whole air of, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing that there should be no expectation that you can go in and, see what the school is like. Whereas in other countries, that's perfectly normal for a parent to ask, may I see the school before I enroll my child? Yeah.
Yeah, usually, I mean, when I was working in MOE, usually we will have that allocated slot that they can visit. But of course, you can also make an appointment to have a chat with the principal if allow for time. If not, I think when it comes to choosing a school, reading the website has its good, actually. But not many of our parents are that diligent to read. And I don't know, is this like tips for choosing school? You can also Google and then go and see whether got some more gossipy information. But generally, I think we have to do our part by researching instead of hearsay.
Okay. So I want to touch on something that was brought up like a couple of times during this conversation, which is about the socioeconomic background, about what this case kind of brings out. Because the lady rented out the mother, she rented out her house and she stays somewhere else. But it kind of reflects that, only parents of a certain socioeconomic background can do this thing where you can move houses to change your address versus say someone who doesn't have the money to rent another place to get a new address. Or even when you talk about people who have to find time to volunteer, like it's a certain kind of demographic of people.
Yeah.
Most moms and dads have to go to work, or, I mean, what do you guys think about it? Like,
it's like, I think what Jackie said earlier, it's not really fair. We've set up this primary school allocation as a game when perhaps it shouldn't be. Perhaps it should just be like some form of automatic allocation, which takes into account things like parent choice and distance, but also things like racial balance, socioeconomic balance, right? Like we do it for HDB estates. I feel like primary schools are actually more critical, right? That's where people really spend time with each other. That's like the formative parts of our childhood. Maybe we should be doing that. Just have a computer algorithm assigning you.
I think it'll be a bit hard because I feel that different school has their distinct programs and focus, because you can't have every school deliver one kind of programs. So when you only have a certain budget to run a school and then you want to differentiate yourself a little bit by having more unique programs, that's how every school become different. And when every school is different, that is when the choice comes in.
But do we want every school different, or do we want every school a good school? I think we need to decide what we want.
No, because the word to me, good, is about suitability. Because if this school actually have more programs that is sports related, then my child is sporty, then I may consider this school based on my understanding of the child. But if suddenly we say all school must have 3 sports program, 3 math program, 3 then will we end up missing out? And also, honestly, manpower-wise, I don't think it's very possible. There are constraints, I feel.
But what I'm hearing is like maybe not every Singaporean parent buys the every school a good school thinking, because this still happens where people try to game the system, right? So, but the government has been pushing, they've said every school a good school. Why do you think parents cannot get on board with, or not cannot, but they seem like, I still want to do it my way. I still want to go to school that I want my kid to go to that particular school. Like,
everybody's looking at me.
Yeah, because
you professional.
No. Okay, so what I would say is that these parents have been taught to think about schools as different since we were young, right? We were taught to compare our schools to other schools, actually, because once upon a time, all our schools were not primary schools, but secondary schools were ranked officially. You go back to 1992 Straits Times archives, you will find the secondary school rankings there, right? And then we always have all this reporting about PSLE scores until 2012, that's when they got rid of it. And, kids are ranked in their class, and the classes are ranked. You have the A class, you have the not so good classes. These are verbatim quotes from my interviewees. And so they're in this mode of comparing, right? And if you tell them every school is a good school, it's very counterintuitive to what they've been taught to believe starting up since young, right? And the fact is that, as Pooja was getting at earlier, they are from a generation where the kind of school that you went to actually did matter for where you ended up in life, right? So as parents reflect on their own lives, they feel like school was consequential for them. And so suddenly to be told that like the school you go to doesn't matter, it doesn't really jive with what they have. It doesn't really jive with their lived experiences in a way. That's
Could also
one
be
thing I'd
the
say.
definition of success,
Yeah.
that it must be tangible. Yeah, tangible in the sense, come help me out.
What? Material
Outcomes.
economics or
Yeah. Because I think if you ask a parent, what do you hope your child can grow up to be? Of course, compared to our time, I don't think so many of them will say lawyer, doctor, and engineer.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
it has been broadened over the years.
Yeah.
But we are still looking at quite a big percentage still thinking that a good head start is to be in the school that can drive academic excellence. Yeah.
Which is a major wrong assumption for this, at least for this century. I think the kind of academic pressure that we have in our primary school system is not really driving the right adult outcomes. And you can see it in our youth mental health rates are really bad, right? We have 1/3 with severe or very severe mental health state, right? And this is looking at youth. And we're also hearing from industry things about maybe Singaporeans, when they come out of the education system, don't really have the 21st century skills that the new economy is looking for, right? Things like creativity, collaboration. And those of us who have seen other school systems will notice that, especially at the primary school level, other countries do it very differently. Other developed countries, they give a lot more space for just less academic pressure and more exploration, right? More exploration, more learning together, more participative learning and teaching. So unfortunately, I think that's another massive parental assumption that is driving this primary school craziness. Yeah, that's maybe not really true anymore.
Maybe I give a perspective now. So my children, although taken out of A school,
It's first school, yes.
but in the end, although we went to somewhere near our neighborhood, it's actually still a very academically driven school, 90 over years old. Don't ask me again which school is it. But I also sit on the advisory committee for 2 local primary schools, Lianhua Primary and First Toa Payoh Primary. Not the first choice for many parents, but year after year, we understand the program. I'm always in the school, either giving a parenting talk or like this morning, I was giving out prizes at the year-end ceremony. The vibe among all these schools that I have been with, I have to say that even this morning, it was so wholesome. We were celebrating things that I seldom see being celebrated in more academically driven school. Perhaps they are like that because the parents keep feeding it that way. But these 2 other schools that I sit on the advisory committee for, their parents are not feeding the school with this kind of requirements of you need to be like that, pressurizing the principal or the teachers to behave a certain way to have that academic outcome. So I was at both of these 2 other schools. It was so wholesome. The children were cheering for their soccer team who went up to receive a prize. And then we were celebrating children who had very good core values like creativity and kindness. Even the speech that the principal was speaking was so different from another one that I was attending, which was, that kind. And then this one was like, reach for the sky, reach for the stars. And even if she said, even if the stars that you are reaching is just to be a kinder person tomorrow. I think that is very powerful. So I feel there are still differences in schools, but we need to be open that, am I open to go to a school that is not, when I do a Google search, it is not Math Olympiad, distinction, Raffles Olympiad science distinction. So if you're always looking for those things, then you'll always end up there.
But parents, in a way, still gravitate towards some elite schools, right?
Some lah, but I think now it's not as
prevalent as before.
okay, yeah.
Is there? What?
We
Yeah, I
hope.
mean-
I think that
it is getting a bit better still lah.
I think that the demand is just shifting to the second tier schools. Sorry to invoke the rankings
now you
and hierarchy, but no, I mean, I'm just speaking the truth of how
Yeah.
parents actually organize schools into a hierarchy in their minds. Yeah.
But they are not. But you are right to say there's a shift. One
Yeah. One
Wow,
notch
let's
down.
say one tier, one level.
Sorry, other schools.
We're supposed to move away from the tier system. But yes, Jackie, you want to explain what you
What is
were
tier
talking about
two?
the tiering system in a parent's mind?
Yeah. So I just made this point on another podcast. So I'll just say it here again that there are several parents who will say that they're not even considering the most competitive schools, the most popular schools, because they're just simply out of reach. They're hard to get into. So why even think about them? And then besides the fact that they are academically competitive and maybe stressful, like what Pooja was saying about her own child's school. But then they still have this idea of the so-called good neighborhood school. And they will still distinguish those kinds of schools from in a sense, the leftover schools, right? Because parents have a lot of access to this information about how many students are applying to the school each year. I mean, your newspaper publishes this.
No, it's called elite.
There's elite.com.sg. That's the previous generation one. Then now there's sgschooling.com.
But elite, the word elite is already.
I did see that website, SG
Yeah.
Schooling, and
Yeah.
it's so comprehensive
Yes.
that the schools are, I mean, they tell you which places.
Past 10 years data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say that's impressive, but also I'm stressed looking at it. I
Exactly.
was so stressed looking at it. I was like,
Exactly.
because if you're at different phases and then it's 20 places, then you're like, oh no, I'm
Yeah.
going to compete for just 20 spots. Then
It's a
how?
self-fulfilling prophecy. The parents see that there are popularity differences. They don't want to do the most intense ones. They don't want to go for the most intense competition. They will go for the competition that maybe they stand a chance in, right? And then they'll see the undersubscribed schools and they'll be like, that school is probably undersubscribed for a reason. And then because their social networks are limited and the information about schools is not that robust, they will just assume that that school is undesirable for a certain reason. So then they avoid that, right? And so then the competition is now, I think, shifting from the most elite schools to the less elite but so-called still good schools. Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to round out this conversation
Okay.
by asking, is there a solution to this, to make parents less competitive? And I'm going to ask you, Pooja, because this is what your nonprofit looks into, right?
Yeah. So at least at the primary school level, we're strongly advocating for let's make every school a good school a reality by, first of all, fixing the primary school allocation system. That should not be a game. Okay, there will be time to play competitive. There's a time where things have to be meritocratic, like entry into university, but entry into primary school is not that point. And so we think it should just be automated allocation. We should really be controlling for socioeconomic diversity so that every child is able to grow up in a microcosm of Singapore. It will do our social cohesion a lot of good because, I don't know about you guys, but when I reached JC, I met friends who are like, oh, Pooja, you're awesome. You're my first Indian friend. And I'm like,
I feel you. Two minority
Are you
people
from
on
a
this
SAP school? No, I was from a SAP school.
that's just wrong on so many levels for a country that prides itself on multiculturalism. And I do work with other charities in other positions, and I've heard about low-income kids neighboring one of these elite schools and how they actually do better in the elite school than similar kids, similar background who end up in these undesirable neighborhood schools because of that peer influence and network effect, right? So I feel like this should be fair. Everyone should have the same distribution or diversity in their school so that we all benefit equally. And to your point about then how do you differentiate schools, I don't think primary schools need to be differentiated, honestly. I think because kids enter at 6 or 7, they should be ready to explore. There should be music, and there should be sports, and there should be arts, and there should be drama. There should be everything for them to try, change their mind. CCAs should be, diverse as well for kids to try. They shouldn't be tied to the same ECA for multiple years. It's really the time for a child to explore and learn about their own strengths. So I'm all for really trying to get to every school a good school by just making it homogenous. Yeah.
Esther, how do we fix the system?
I think parents need to know their kids well, not what other people say. And that would take time. So if you're making decision based on hearsay, I think that's the most dangerous thing that any parent should do. Take time to talk to your children, look at what their interest area are, look at what they are weak in, what they are strong in, before making a decision. And also, let's be realistic. Where do you stay? Your time as a dual income family or your time as a working mom or dad, are you able to commit the time for a certain kind of school? I think assessing yourself, assessing the family, assessing your child, and knowing how this dynamic can work in going to a certain school is something that can be more considered. So slow down. Really, parents need to slow down. Slow down to process. Don't react. Don't respond because other people say whatever. So I feel that when people start thinking, then something can change.
Jackie, your thoughts on the solution here?
Yeah, maybe just to echo what Pooja said about imagining this utopian future where we have diverse schools. Just as a sociologist of education, I think about what are the broad functions that schools serve in society. And although we often think about schools in terms of what they do for individual social mobility, there's also this other really important function of fostering social cohesion for society, right? And schools are really, besides NS, which is only for men, the only major national institution that we have for introducing children to broader communities beyond their immediate families and social circles, right? And so I do think, like, from a social cohesion perspective, there's very good reason why we would want that sort of maybe intentional social mixing in primary schools. And I don't necessarily think the issue of, like, how do you then distinguish one school from another is that critical. I do think that, yes, you want, maybe for certain strengths, you need some kind of critical mass in a school, right, to have a strength in arts or schools, sports.
But it's also, I agree with her that it could be a bit early.
Yeah.
Because they should have more fun.
Yes.
Yeah, but also, like, even if you have, okay, maybe like this school in the neighborhood is good in arts, this school is good in sports, then maybe the schools can have some sort of exchange, right? They could draw on the strengths of different schools potentially. The last thing I'll just say, sorry, long-winded, is that I think the competition for primary schools is simply reflective of the much larger inequalities that we have in society. And so part of this cannot be solved just by tackling the P1 registration system, right? It's a systemic thing that boils down to, as Pooja mentioned earlier, wage inequalities. In the first place, we have significant wage inequalities and segregation in our social networks, right? And so some of these, are just like deeply entrenched social issues that we cannot try to solve with
In one podcast.
Yes, in one podcast.
We did a series
on this. Yes, we'll just have to at this point.
You can have a parent series now.
Yeah.
So,
So we'll have to get you back on to talk about that when it happens, when we figure out what's next to tackle. But on that note, thank you all for being here. I thought that was very interesting perspective on what we can do to, help parents release all these anxieties. Because hearing it just makes me stressed.
Yeah.
Jackie, you have a 2-year-old.
Three, yeah.
And
Still in a fun phase of toddlerhood for now.
Are you stressing out over P1 registration?
I don't feel I have time.
Okay, well, on that note, thank you all for being here. And that's it from The Usual Place. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss the next episode. And if you have thoughts on what we just discussed, do drop a comment on YouTube or talk to me on Instagram at The Usual Place Podcast. I'll see you next week on Thursday at noon.